Solving polynomial equations. We will hold on to your 6-5 bookwork from last time. Next Wednesday in class, Thursday if you're on Black Day, we will grade 6-5 and 6-6. Solving polynomial equations. Some of the stuff in this section is review because it worked for quadratics in chapter 5, and then some of it's new because they're not quadratic. So what you're going to have to recall are the steps of factoring. I am not kidding. Step 1. What do we always look for first? Common terms. These are listed in a nice table there on page 349. Always look for common terms first. Always. No matter if it looks like it's a squares problem, you still check for common terms. Another handy thing about the table there is it tells you how many terms are involved. Obviously with common, that's with any amount of terms. No matter how many terms there are, you always check for that. Step 2, there are 3 things you look for. And the first one that we've talked about before is difference of squares. What we will be adding new today is a sum or difference of cubes. And with either one of those, how many terms does it say are involved? 2 terms. So if you have 3 terms, would you need to check step 2? So it's just 2 terms are involved with those 2 things. And we will go over how to do these steps after we write them down. What's the next thing it tells you to look for? And we just call them trinomials. That way we don't get confused on whether they're perfect or general. We just call them trinomials. That's the next thing you check for. And how many terms are obviously involved with that? 3. And the last thing, what do we try? Grouping. So step 4, which is again new, we didn't do that, is grouping. And how many terms are involved there? 4 or more, and for the most part, it's going to be 4. You have 4 terms. So those are the 4 steps you will go through. Some of them you'll be able to tell right off the bat which one it is, and it'll be pretty simple. Some of the problems, all you can do is take out a common term. And then sometimes you can go on and do some of these other things, sometimes not. So on the next page, top of 350, there's a couple problems of just common term. So we have 6x squared y squared minus 2xy squared plus 6x cubed y. So it's probably good practice on all these problems to go ahead and look and see how many terms do we have up there right now. 3 terms. So you can kind of be looking back to this info we wrote down, see which one of these you're going to be possibly working with. Not that you are going to be, but what you would possibly be working with. But we're always doing step 1, taking out a common term. So just looking at the numbers, we have 6, 2, and 6. What can we take out of all of those? The 2. So we can take that out front. Now we look at the first variable that we see. We have an x squared, an x, and an x to the third. So what can we take out of there? Remember, you take the smallest one that you see, which would be x to the first. And then the y, we have y squared, and y to the first. So again, just taking out a y is all we can do there. And when we say take out, what operation are we talking about? Division. So you're dividing that term out, 2xy. So you just do that with each one. 6 over 2 is 3. X squared divided by x would leave you with x, and y squared divided by y is y. So we've done the first term. Minus 2 over 2 is 1, and you can put the 1 there, or you don't have to. X over x is what? What was 2 over 2? So x over x is also 1. And then y squared over y is y to the first. So that's all you'd have left out of that middle term. And then plus 6 over 2 again is 3. X cubed over x is x squared. And y over y, 1, or it cancels out. That's what we're left with. So how many terms do we have inside the parentheses there? 3 terms. You always need to check what's left inside this parentheses when you take out a common term for those other things. There's 3 terms there, so we know it's not neither one of these things. It's not the sum or difference parts. The only thing it could be is a trinomial. Does that look like the trinomials that you're familiar with from chapter 5? No, it's not. You have x and y in there. We didn't have that anywhere in chapter 5. So that's all you can do to that one, is take out the common term. So let's do one more of those. 18 x cubed y to the 4th. Plus 12 x squared y cubed. Minus 6 xy squared. So we have 18, 12, and 6. What can we take out? The 6, x cubed, x squared, and x. And what about the y? Y squared. 18 over 6 is 3. X cubed over x. X squared. And y4 over y2 is y squared. Plus 12 over 6. 2. X squared over x. Y cubed over y squared. Minus 6 over 6 is 1. X over x. And y squared, y squared. So what do we have to put there? So you do have to write the 1 if everything cancels. We had one of those a couple weeks ago. And again, then, that's not the trinomials that you're used to seeing in chapter 5. Again, that one is complete. All you can do is take out the common term. So grouping is new today. It's really not difficult, but it is new. How many terms are involved in grouping? 4 or more, and most of the time, especially in this section anyway, it's going to be 4. So we have a to the 3rd minus 4a squared. Plus 3a minus 12. So what grouping means is just what it says. You're going to group a couple of those terms together so that you can deal with them separately. Most of the time, and in this example as well, most of the time you're going to group the first 2 numbers and you're going to group the last 2 numbers. I checked through the homework as far as I could anyway. I didn't find anywhere that was different. But if it is, you might have to rearrange your terms a little bit. So once you've grouped them, you look at each individual binomial here and see what you can take out of there. So is there a common number you can take out of 1 and 4? Take a 1 out, and we don't ever write that out front. So there's not really a number. How about a letter? We have a cubed and a squared. So we can take an a squared out of there. So it's just like what we were doing above. A cubed over a squared is a to the first minus 4 over 1 is 4. And what happens with the a squareds? Cancel. And then we have 3a and 12. So what can we take out of 3 and 12? A 3, and do they both have an a? No, so you can't take a letter out of it. So 3a divided by 3, what would you have left? Just the a, and 12 over 3 is 4. So that's the first step of grouping. Group them and take out what you can. So now we have basically two terms up there. We have this whole part, the first part, and then a plus sign, and then this whole part. So looking at these two sets, is there anything in common now? What? The a minus 4. So you can actually take out the a minus 4 from both parts there. So if we take out the a minus 4, what's left on the left side over here? Just the a squared plus, and what would be left over here? The 3. And that's how you end up with your next part of the problem. And in this case, that's all you can do. So how many terms do we have inside here? 2, and same with this one, 2 terms. So you always have to go back to your steps. What should we be checking for there? What? Which one of those involves 2 terms? The difference, the sum and difference part. So you have to check for those 3 things on any time you have 2 terms left. So this one would have to be cubed or squared. It's not. This one is squared, so you need to check, is this a perfect square, the 3 here? No, 3 is not a perfect square. So that's, once you've checked for it and it's not, that would be your final answer there. X squared plus 3xy plus 2xy squared plus 6y cubed. So how many terms we got? 4. What you need to check for, I forgot to say this on the first one, where we always have to check for that common term between all 4 of those. So do all 4 of these have a letter in common? No, they don't. 3 of them have an X and 3 of them have a Y, not all 4 of them. So you can't take a letter out. Is there a number then that you can take out of all 4? Not in this case, not besides a 1. So don't forget to check that each time. So what can we take out of the first group? Just an X. So we would have, when we divide X squared by X, we'd have just X plus 3y. The X would be the only thing canceling out there. And then we have 2xy squared plus 6y cubed. What can we take out? Definitely take a 2. Do they both have an X? But they do both have a Y. Y squared is the one we can take there. So what's left out of this first term? Just the X plus 3y. And that is the goal of grouping. You want this part that's left to be the same. If it's not, then you probably made a mistake with something you took out, or you need to try to regroup those numbers up there to where it will end up giving you the same thing. So then what's in common?
X plus 3y.
So we can take that out. And what's left?
X plus 2y.
X plus 2y squared. And again, neither of these binomials are sum or difference of cubes or difference of squares, so, but you do have to check.